2011 at the Open at St. George's. Todd, thank you. Paulie, how big is Rory in these parts?
Well, in my view, he's the greatest ever Irish sports person, and North and South, and that's a high bar. We've had an unbelievable success in our country in sport, and but to be a Grand Slam winner and to be as dominant as he is for such a long period of time in the sport of golf, which is a very popular game, remember, here in the island of Ireland. You know, we have a population north and south of about maybe 7 million, just under 7 million people, and we've got nearly 450 golf courses. So golf is a very accessible sport here in Ireland. Most people in our country play it. Kids play it. It's something everybody can do. It's not expensive. The most expensive golf club in Ireland to be a member at is about $4,000 a year. And the cheapest can go down to $400 or $500 a year. So it's accessible, and it's financially people can afford to do it. So people play it, you know. So what I'm saying is a lot of people play golf. They're familiar with golf, and to have a dominant player like Rory McIlroy is, for me, he's our greatest ever sports person. Now that he's completed the Grand Slam in particular.
And when you listen to what Todd said there, and what Rory sort of echoed in his sentiments, was this could, from an emotional standpoint, exceed what happened at the Masters. Now, it's hard to get your arms around the outpouring of emotion and support that Rory received globally, but locally and nationally, when you start to think about a hometown story, our hometown hero coming home to do something epic, I would say that, you know, if Rory were to go on and succeed and win this week, and given what we've seen the last 2 times he's out, I'd say it's really definitely in the cards. You start to think about, again, go back to 1913, Francis Ouimet, a hometown hero winning there. They wrote a book about it. They made a movie about it. You think about it, what Arnold Palmer almost did in 1962 in his backyard at Oakmont. Didn't get it done because he lost in the playoff for Jack Nicklaus, but we're 63 years down the road, and we're still talking about it. And so I do believe that could, you know, it very well could be locally and nationally as important, and the emotional outpouring as great or greater if Rory were to succeed here.
Paulie, how the environment here in Northern Ireland shaped Rory?
Well, we come from a very, what would you say? I mean, confrontational. It's
fractured.
Been a very fractured, divisive part of Ireland here in the very top right-hand corner called Northern Ireland. And anybody who knows and studies the history of Ireland can see, you know, particularly down along religious lines, there was a huge division. And Rory grew up, and Rory's mom and dad in particular grew up in that environment. And then Rory was a product of it, you know. So, you know, I know myself coming up here to play, I mean, it's not that I wasn't welcome, but it did feel like I was going to a different country. And even though it was only a couple of hours drive up from the south, and a lot of guys, when I was a top amateur in Ireland, when we come up to play the north of Ireland here, a lot of guys wouldn't travel for that because, you know, there was explosions going on, there was car explosions going on, there was sectarian killings just walking down the street in the wrong part of town. You can get shot. It was a dangerous place back then. And Rory, although he's very non-political and doesn't take any sides in any of that, and he's kind of past the worst part of it, of course it shaped his culture. It was part of his schooling. It would have been part of his friendship. And it was part of growing up on the outskirts of Belfast. And that thing battle hardens you, you know. And, you know, I think a lot of his resilience has come from that tough background. And I put Darren Clark and Graham McDowell in the same spot as well, too. Northern Irish people are tough. You have to be tough. Growing up in this environment when explosions were going around, and bearing in mind, golf was one of those sports that were pinpointed, you know, because it was seen as a Protestant game. So people would blow up golf courses because that's where the Protestants had their activities. And it was, and that wasn't that long ago. We're only talking back in the 1980s here. But thankfully, we're moved all past that. The RNA have done an amazing job to bring the Open Championship here, to kind of move away from the term British Open and call it the Open Championship again, and bring it in there. And it's been seamless. They've done a wonderful job. Maybe you should send them over to Israel and Gaza. They'll do as good a job over there.
And do you think that has something to do with why Rory was reluctant to pledge an allegiance either way in the Olympics early on, because he didn't want to breach that divide?
Absolutely. And he knows how divisive that can be by going on one side or the other. And he tries to be non-political as much as he can. He never talks about it. He doesn't want to talk about it. And he is a non-political person anyway. And that's the right place for him to be. And that's where you can kind of bring peace from both sides.
Years ago, you never would have seen a mural as we have right now of
Yeah.
Shane Lowry here in the
Somebody
north.
from the south here in a town like Portrush, absolutely. And again, it's another example of how things are much, much better than they were before. I feel very safe coming up here now. I'm happy to come up here. We're very well received now, and people from the north come down as a strong blending. And sport, remember, is a unified game in Ireland. Not all our sports are, but golf is. So when Rory was a kid, when he played for Ireland, he didn't play for Northern Ireland, he played for Ireland. And, you know, we are a unified sport when it comes to the game of golf.